You know that feeling. The one where something in a dream shifts, just slightly. And for one quiet moment you think, wait, this isn't real. I'm dreaming. Tonight, we're going somewhere safe with that feeling, into the science of what actually happens in those rare, still moments when your sleeping mind turns to look at itself. Welcome to Psychology for Sleep. Wherever you are right now, lying still, breathing slowly, perhaps already feeling the edges of the day begin to dissolve. Let yourself settle here. We'll cross the threshold of 100 psychology facts about lucid dreaming. From the first moment consciousness flickers on inside sleep, to the architecture of the aware dreaming brain, to what it means that the mind can hold two worlds at once and still choose rest. This quiet journey through the science of dreaming creates a soft community of minds who find comfort in knowing your gentle presence here. A like, a subscribe, a thought left in the comments creates a pathway for other searching souls to find this place too, and brings us closer to protecting this sanctuary for every tired mind who needs it. One healing night, one sleepy soul at a time. Your being here means everything to us. Let yourself settle completely here. Feel the tension in your jaw begin to soften, your breath deepening on its own. You don't need to hold on to any of this tonight. Simply notice the quiet heaviness spreading through you, like a door handle that is real and solid and cool. And you press your palm to it gently, and you know you are safe. You are exactly where you are meant to be, and you can let go. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're resting where memories rest safely in gentle darkness. Let your mind dissolve into the space between knowing and dreaming. And now we begin. Most nights, you dream without knowing it. You travel through landscapes, speak with people, feel emotions, and you accept every impossible thing as completely real. A cat that speaks, a city that shifts, a door that leads somewhere new each time you open it. None of it seems strange while you are inside it. This is ordinary dreaming, the sleeping mind in its most natural state, building worlds from memory and emotion, without any part of it standing back to ask, wait, is this a dream? The fact that we spend roughly 2 hours each night in this state, absorbed, unquestioning, entirely convinced, is itself one of the quietest wonders in all of psychology. Lucid dreaming is the moment that changes. It is the experience of becoming aware, while asleep, that you are dreaming. The word comes from the Latin lucidus, meaning clear, and that is precisely what it feels like to those who have experienced it, a sudden clarity, a lifting of a veil. The dream does not stop. The images, the sounds, the sensations, they all continue, but something inside the sleeping mind wakes up, just enough to recognize the dream for what it is. You are still asleep, and yet, in some quiet way, you are also there. Research across more than 30 studies, spanning 5 decades of investigation, has found that roughly 55% of adults have experienced at least one lucid dream in their lifetime. That is more than half the population. More than half of the people you know have stood inside a dream at some point and thought, I know this is not waking life. The experience is not rare in the way that rare things are rare. It is simply quiet, unrepeated, a moment that arrives once or twice and is remembered for years. Of those 55%, about 23% report having lucid dreams monthly, and roughly 11% experience them twice or more each month. A smaller group, perhaps 1 in 1,000 people, have them so frequently and so naturally that they barely think about it. For this rare segment, lucidity in dreaming is simply part of how the mind works at night. Researchers find this group especially interesting because their brains, even during waking hours, show patterns that seem connected to this unusual ability. Lucid dreaming happens almost exclusively during REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, the stage most associated with vivid dreaming. REM sleep occurs in cycles throughout the night, with the longest periods arriving in the final hours before waking. This is why early morning sleep, when REM is most abundant, tends to produce the most vivid and most easily remembered dreams. It is also why techniques designed to encourage lucid dreaming often involve waking in the early morning hours, resting briefly, and then returning to sleep, stepping deliberately back into the window where the dreaming brain is most active. The scientific study of lucid dreaming required a problem to be solved first. In the early 1980s, a psychophysiologist named Stephen LaBerge completed his doctoral research at Stanford University. The central challenge was this: how do you prove, from outside the dreaming mind, that a person is actually conscious inside a dream? His answer was simple and quiet in its logic. He asked lucid dreamers to move their eyes in a prearranged pattern. Left, right, left, right. At the moment of becoming lucid, because the eye muscles are not paralyzed during REM sleep the way the rest of the body is, the signals crossed from dream into the waking world. For the first time, two-way communication between a dreaming person and a researcher became possible. The eye movement signal LaBerge developed, a specific sequence of left-right eye movements, has become the gold standard in lucid dreaming research. When a dreamer signals, EEG electrodes recording brain activity catch the moment in real time. Researchers can now study what happens in the brain, not just during sleep, but at the precise instant that awareness lights up inside a dream. This technique has been used across laboratories in the Netherlands, Germany, Brazil, and the United States, quietly building a body of knowledge about the dreaming mind that would otherwise have been impossible to gather. Before any of this formal research, the phenomenon had been described for centuries. What may be one of the earliest written references to becoming aware within a dream appears in the writings of the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle. In the 4th century before the Common Era, Tibetan Buddhist monks developed practices called dream yoga, systematic methods for maintaining consciousness during sleep that have been refined and transmitted for over 1,000 years. In many contemplative traditions, the sleeping aware mind was not considered a curiosity, but a doorway, a threshold between ordinary consciousness and something deeper. Researchers are only now beginning to examine these ancient practices through the lens of modern neuroscience. In normal REM sleep, certain parts of the brain become more active, while others quietly dim. The emotional centers, the amygdala and related structures. show increased blood flow, which accounts for the often vivid emotional quality of ordinary dreams. Meanwhile, a region called the anterior prefrontal cortex, associated with self-awareness and analytical thinking, shows reduced activity. This dimming is thought to be part of why we accept impossible things in dreams without question. The part of the brain that usually asks, "Does this make sense?" has, for the moment, gone quiet. In a lucid dream, something shifts in that dimming. The anterior prefrontal cortex begins to reactivate. Not fully, not to waking levels, but enough. Enough to carry the thought I am dreaming. Enough to recognize the strangeness that ordinary dreaming passes over. The first neuroimaging study of an actively lucid dreaming brain, conducted in Germany in 2012, observed increased blood oxygen signals in the prefrontal cortex and several parietal regions during signal-verified lucid dreaming, regions that are notably quiet during ordinary REM sleep. It was, at the time, the only fMRI ever successfully recorded during active lucid dreaming, and its findings pointed toward a brain in a genuinely unusual state. The prefrontal cortex is sometimes called the seat of metacognition, the capacity to think about thinking, to observe your own mental state. It is the part of the brain that notices I am feeling anxious, or I am not reasoning clearly. During ordinary waking life, it operates almost constantly. During ordinary sleep, it rests. During lucid dreaming, it wakes up partway. Within sleep, the sleeping brain gains, for that brief window, the capacity to reflect on itself. It becomes, in a very real sense, aware of its own dreaming. A 2018 study from the University of Wisconsin examined the brains of 14 people who reported having 3 or more lucid dreams per week. These frequent lucid dreamers, when compared with a matched control group, showed something unusual even during ordinary waking rest. Their anterior prefrontal cortex had stronger resting state connections to parietal and temporal regions associated with language, memory, and high-level cognition. The dreaming brain's metacognitive network, it seemed, was not just more active during lucid dreams. It was more tightly organized throughout the entire day. This finding suggests that frequent lucid dreaming may not simply be a skill that is practiced. It may reflect a broader quality of mind, a stronger capacity for metacognitive awareness, for noticing what the mind is doing from a slight remove. Researchers have described the brains of frequent lucid dreamers as having a more tight-knit community of higher-order association hubs. In plain language, the regions that allow a person to step back and observe their own experience appear to be particularly well connected in those who dream lucidly most often. This connection to metacognition has led researchers to study the relationship between lucid dreaming and meditation. A 2024 study found that frequent lucid dreaming is associated with specific styles of meditation practice, particularly practices focused on meta-awareness. Noticing the quality of attention itself, long-term meditators are more likely to report lucid dreams, and the skills built in meditation, the capacity to observe experience without being lost in it, appear to overlap with the skills that allow a dreamer to recognize, from inside the dream, that they are dreaming. There is something quietly beautiful in this overlap. The meditator learning to watch thoughts arise and pass without being carried away. The lucid dreamer learning to stand inside a world built entirely from the mind, and still know it is a world built entirely from the mind. Both require the same fundamental ability to be present in an experience while simultaneously recognizing it as an experience. To be inside and outside at once. This capacity, research suggests, is not fixed. It can be cultivated, gently, over time, with practice, beyond metacognition. Lucid dreaming is associated with a particular type of memory, prospective memory. This is the ability to remember future intentions, to carry a plan from one moment into another. Prospective memory is what allows you to remember tomorrow morning, to do something you decided tonight. It is, in a sense, the bridge between intention and action across time. In lucid dreaming, the same bridge is needed, not across sleeping hours, but across the boundary between waking and dreaming. The intention formed before sleep must survive the transition into the dream state intact. In 1980, Stephen LaBerge developed a technique built around this prospective memory bridge. He called it MILD, mnemonic induction of lucid dreams. The method involves waking after several hours of sleep, briefly reviewing the dream just completed, identifying something unusual within it, and then holding a single intention before returning to sleep next time I am dreaming. I will remember to recognize that I am dreaming. The intention, held at the threshold of sleep, seeds the dreaming mind with a gentle alertness, like a note left on the edge of a table, visible when the door opens. LaBerge tested the technique on himself over years of research. Before developing MILD, he averaged less than one lucid dream per month. After consistent practice, he reported between 18 and 26 lucid dreams in a single month, and up to 4 in a single night. This was not a passive shift. It was the result of deliberately training the prospective memory bridge, strengthening the pathway between a waking intention and a dreaming recognition. The sleeping mind, it turned out, could be prepared, gently guided toward awareness, like a room left slightly lit for someone expected to arrive. The technique most commonly combined with MILD is called wake back to bed, sometimes shortened to WBTB. It takes advantage of the biology of REM sleep. After 5 or 6 hours of sleep, a person wakes briefly, perhaps 20 to 30 minutes, and then returns to sleep, because the longest REM periods of the night occur in the final hours of sleep. This brief awakening positions the dreamer at the entrance to the richest dreaming window. The sleeper re-enters sleep already slightly alert, with the MILD intention freshly placed. A large study conducted across 355 participants found that both MILD and a technique called SSILD, senses-initiated lucid dream, which involves cycling attention gently through the senses before sleep, were comparably effective at increasing lucid dreaming frequency. Neither technique required prior experience with lucid dreaming to produce results. The strongest predictor of success was not the technique itself, but the speed of falling back asleep after completing it. Participants who drifted back into sleep within 5 minutes of completing the practice had lucid dreams on roughly 46% of those occasions. Another induction approach involves the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. This chemical, released by nerve cells, plays an important role in REM sleep regulation. A drug called galantamine, originally developed to treat cognitive decline, raises acetylcholine levels. In controlled studies, has been shown to significantly increase lucid dream frequency. In one double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, the highest tested dose increased lucid dream occurrence to roughly 42% of nights when combined with MILD practice. The chemistry of wakefulness, it seems, can be nudged gently into the chemistry of awareness, even during sleep. More recent research from Northwestern University has explored what researchers call targeted lucidity reactivation. This technique uses carefully timed auditory cues, a sound played during REM sleep that the sleeper has been trained, while awake, to associate with the question, "Am I dreaming?" When the sound arrives during REM sleep, it carries that question in with it. In a 2024 study, participants using this method experienced lucid dreams at roughly 2.8 times their usual frequency. The dreaming brain, it turns out, is not fully sealed. It can hear a soft knock. There is also a variant of lucid dreaming that begins not in REM sleep but at the very threshold of falling asleep, known as a wake-initiated lucid dream, or WILD. It involves maintaining a thread of awareness as the body enters sleep, a kind of conscious descent. The imagery of the hypnagogic state, the visual and sensory fragments that appear as the waking mind releases its hold, is observed, not surrendered to. With practice, this thread of awareness can be carried into a full dream without a gap. The experience is often described as very vivid. It is also difficult, and more likely to produce sleep paralysis, and is generally not recommended for those new to the practice. Sleep paralysis is the experience of waking, or nearly waking, while the body remains in the muscle atonia of REM sleep. The muscles are temporarily still. The mind is alert. The transition feels frozen. This experience, which affects roughly 7.6% of people at least once in their lives, can be unsettling when unexpected. For those who understand what it is, a brief overlap of two states, it can be navigated calmly. Many experienced lucid dreamers learn to use it as an entry point, recognizing the paralyzed stillness as an opportunity to slide back into a dream intentionally. What was once frightening becomes, with knowledge, a doorway. By this point in our journey, a pattern is emerging. Lucid dreaming sits at an unusual intersection. It is partly about the biology of sleep, partly about the chemistry of attention, and partly about a quality of mind that can be trained, a capacity for noticing that grows with practice. The science points consistently toward this. The dreaming mind is not a closed room. It has windows, and those windows can, with the right conditions, be opened gently from the inside. We are only beginning to understand how. Let's pause here and notice your body. Breathe out slowly. Appreciate the quiet intelligence in every cell, right now, without any instruction from you. Your heart is keeping its rhythm. Your lungs are drawing in air. Your brain is sorting today into something it can hold. Trillions of small processes running in silence. You don't need to understand them. You don't need to manage them. They were doing this long before you were born, and they will keep doing it tonight. Notice the weight of your body, the soft pressure against the surface beneath you. You are a complete ecosystem, self-maintaining, self-healing, and tonight, it is tending to you. Now we continue. When a lucid dream begins, at the precise moment the sleeper signals awareness with the agreed eye movements. Something happens in a small structure deep in the brain called the precuneus. In the most recent large-scale EEG study, published in the Journal of Neuroscience in 2025, researchers analyzed data pooled from laboratories across 5 countries. They found that at the moment of initial lucidity signaling, gamma power, one of the fastest brainwave frequencies, associated with active conscious processing, briefly increased in the precuneus. This structure, tucked in the parietal lobe, is involved in self-awareness, mental imagery, and the sense of being a first-person experiencer. Its quiet surge at the moment of becoming lucid is, perhaps, the signature of the dreaming self recognizing itself. The same 2025 study found something else at the broader level of brain communication. During lucid dreaming, alpha wave connectivity, the cooperative synchrony between regions that is associated with focused, relaxed awareness, increased across the posterior regions of the brain when compared to ordinary REM sleep. The dreaming brain was not simply awake in one spot. It was communicating across a wider network, not with the noisy urgency of waking thought, but with a quieter, more distributed coordination, as if something was listening to itself, gently, from many directions at once. The temporoparietal junction, a region where the temporal and parietal lobes meet, roughly above and behind the ear, appears repeatedly in lucid dreaming research. During ordinary waking life, it plays a role in distinguishing between self and other, in understanding what other minds might be thinking, and in processing the boundary between your body and the world around it. During lucid dreaming, this area shows changed patterns of activation. Some researchers speculate that it may be involved in the dreamer's experience of being inside the dream as a self, aware of the body that is lying in bed, while simultaneously inhabiting the body that is walking in the dream. Metacognition, the awareness of one's own mental states, is what allows a person to notice not just what they are thinking, but that they are thinking. During ordinary REM sleep, metacognition dims. The dreaming mind is absorbed in experience without this reflective layer. During lucid dreaming, metacognition partially returns. Not fully. The main focus remains the dream itself, the landscape and the story. But something stands just behind the dream, watching without interrupting. Researchers describe this partial return as a kind of re-emergence, the brain noticing its own activity without yet pulling back from it. Like a soft light held in the corner of a room, present, but not glaring. One of the most consistent findings across lucid dreaming research is the involvement of the prefrontal cortex. And yet, as the 2025 multi-laboratory EEG study carefully noted, the picture remains incomplete. There is considerable variability between individuals. No single brain signature marks every lucid dream in every person. The frontal regions are involved, but the exact pattern of involvement differs. This, in itself, is worth sitting with. Consciousness is not a switch. It is not a single region. It appears to be a quality that emerges from the coordination of many regions. And the lucid dream, where consciousness partially returns during sleep, reveals this distributed nature with unusual clarity. Before the invention of brain scanning technology, the evidence for lucid dreaming rested largely on the subjective reports of dreamers and the behavioral data of eye movement signals. Both were considered by mainstream psychology to be unreliable. The possibility that a person could be aware inside a dream was treated, for much of the 20th century, as more legend than science. It was the eye movement verification, the physical signal crossing from dream into the laboratory, that shifted the conversation. The dreamer had found a way to send a message from inside sleep. The door between two worlds had, for one moment, been left ajar. Beyond the brain's internal activity, researchers have found that frequent lucid dreaming is associated with differences in brain structure. A 2015 study found that people with higher levels of dream lucidity showed greater gray matter volume in a region of the frontal pole called the frontopolar cortex, a specific area within the broader prefrontal region, compared with those who rarely experience lucid dreams. This same region also showed stronger activation during waking metacognitive tasks. The connection between brain structure and lucid dreaming appeared, in those findings, to run deeper than the dream itself. The brain that dreams with awareness may carry the traces of that awareness even in the quiet of waking. Lucid dreamers who have trained their awareness extensively report that within a lucid dream, they can perform intentional acts, not just recognize that they are dreaming, but engage with the dream deliberately. They can choose to walk through a wall. They can call out to a character and ask them a question. They can attempt to change the setting, to fly, to explore. Research suggests that these volitional acts during lucid dreams activate motor cortex regions similar to those activated when the same actions are imagined during waking life. The sleeping brain can plan, intend, and act. It simply does so within a world it has built entirely from within. This overlap between lucid dream action and waking imagination has led to curious applications. Athletes, musicians, and dancers have reported using lucid dreams to rehearse performances, to practice a difficult passage, to run a sequence of movements, to work through a challenging moment in a routine. Research on motor imagery strongly supports the idea that mental rehearsal produces real improvements in performance. Whether lucid dreaming amplifies this rehearsal effect is still an open question. But the reports are consistent across multiple domains. The sleeping mind as a practice space, a studio open only in the small hours of the night. The emotional quality of lucid dreams is generally reported as positive. Studies that have surveyed both the content and the mood of lucid dreams find that they are more often experienced as pleasant, even joyful, than ordinary dreams. The sense of agency, of being present and capable within the dream, appears to shift the emotional tone of the experience. Fear and helplessness, common in ordinary nightmares, are replaced by curiosity and a quiet sense of possibility. This mood shift has a spillover effect. Several studies have found that people who had lucid dreams on a given night reported more positive mood when they woke the following morning. Dreams, in general, serve the emotional processing that sleep is partly designed to provide. During REM sleep, the brain revisits the experiences of the day in a neurochemical environment where stress hormones, particularly norepinephrine, are suppressed. This low-stress environment allows the emotional content of memories to be processed without the physiological arousal that accompanied the original experience. The memory is, in a sense, diffused, softened. This is why people often say that things feel different after sleeping on them. The emotional weight has been quietly redistributed overnight. Lucid dreaming may deepen this emotional processing. In a lucid dream, the dreamer is not simply carried through an emotional scene. They are present within it, aware, capable of response. They can choose to face a fear rather than flee it. They can engage with a difficult image rather than be overwhelmed by it. Researchers theorize that this quality of conscious engagement within the dream state may support a particularly effective form of emotional resolution, not erasing the difficulty, but meeting it from a position of greater awareness and choice. A 2025 review of 38 peer-reviewed studies examining the full breadth of evidence on lucid dreaming and mental health concluded that lucid dreaming shows genuine promise as a therapeutic tool, particularly for nightmare disorders and post-traumatic stress. The review noted that evidence remains preliminary and that further research with larger samples and standardized methods is needed. But the direction of the findings was consistent when people gain some degree of conscious agency within their dreams. The distress of those dreams tends to diminish. The reviewed studies pointed, again and again, toward the same quiet possibility, that the aware dreaming mind may be able to tend to its own wounds. Narcolepsy, a neurological condition affecting the brain's ability to regulate sleep and wakefulness, produces the highest rate of naturally occurring lucid dreams of any known population. People with narcolepsy experience lucid dreams far more frequently than the general population, and in some studies, the difference in rate is estimated at roughly 25 times higher. This is thought to be related to the unusual transitions between states that characterize narcolepsy, the brain moving more fluidly between waking and sleeping, and sometimes carrying awareness across that boundary in both directions. The condition that makes ordinary sleep difficult also, by an odd grace, makes conscious dreaming unusually accessible. Children experience lucid dreams more frequently than adults, and with greater ease. Studies examining lucid dreaming across age groups have found a peak of natural lucidity in childhood and adolescence, with a gradual decline as the years progress. Whether this reflects differences in brain development, in the flexibility of the still-forming metacognitive systems, or simply in the willingness to take the experience at face value, to accept that awareness inside a dream is possible, is not yet fully understood. But something in the unguarded attention of a child, it seems, opens more readily onto the lucid threshold, and in adulthood, that opening can, with gentle effort, be found again. Take a slow breath. Notice how your thoughts have softened a little, how the day has receded just slightly further into the background. We're exploring the science of awareness and dreams together. You and I, and everyone listening in the quiet tonight. Moving gently through what the mind does when no one is watching. There's nowhere to get to, just the gentle unfolding of something worth knowing. Let's continue. The study of lucid dreaming has become, in recent years, a lens through which researchers examine something much larger, the nature of consciousness itself. What does it mean to be aware? What are the minimum conditions necessary for experience to exist? Lucid dreaming offers a rare natural experiment, a state where some of the hallmarks of waking consciousness, self-awareness, reflective thought, intentional action, re-emerge within a sleeping brain. By studying what changes in the brain when this happens, researchers gain a clearer view of what makes conscious experience possible at all. One of the most influential frameworks in consciousness research is integrated information theory, which proposes that consciousness is related to the degree of interconnection and information integration across brain regions. Ordinary REM sleep shows disrupted integration. Regions communicate less effectively with one another than they do during waking. Lucid dreaming, preliminary evidence suggests, may restore some of this integration in specific networks, particularly in the frontal and parietal regions. This partial restoration may be what allows awareness to re-emerge. Consciousness, on this view, is not a switch, but a dial, and the lucid dream turns it partway up from within sleep. There is also a deeply human quality to what lucid dreamers most commonly choose to do with their awareness. Surveys of lucid dreaming experience across many cultures and age groups find that the most commonly reported use is simple wish fulfillment. Not in a trivial sense. People use lucid dreams to fly, to feel the sensation of altitude and freedom that the body never provides. They use them to visit people who have died, to speak with someone they have lost, to hold a conversation that waking life closed before it could be completed. The lucid dream, in this most human application, becomes a space where certain distances between the living and the lost, between the possible and the not yet, are gently, briefly, closed. Researchers have also documented what they call transpersonal lucid dreams, experiences in which the dreamer moves beyond the ordinary sense of individual self and touches something felt to be larger, an expanded sense of identity, a sense of connection with something beyond the personal. These experiences resemble what psychologists call self-transcendent experiences, states associated with increased feelings of awe, compassion, and meaning. They are reported across cultures, across historical periods, and across all levels of prior lucid dreaming experience. The dreaming mind, when aware of itself, sometimes turns not inward but outward, and finds something worth noticing there. Recent research at Northwestern University has explored the possibility of influencing the content of lucid dreams before they begin, using virtual reality experiences as a kind of pre-sleep imprint. Participants who underwent an immersive VR experience involving themes of interconnectedness and ego attenuation before sleep were more likely to dream about those themes lucidly and to report a sense of expanded self during the dream. The boundary between waking influence and dreaming content, it seems, is more permeable than once thought. What you hold gently in mind before sleep may shape the world you enter. The ancient Tibetan practice of dream yoga, a contemplative tradition aimed at cultivating lucidity during sleep as a form of spiritual development, is now being studied through modern neuroimaging. Researchers are recruiting experienced practitioners, recording overnight EEG, and conducting what are called micro-phenomenological interviews, detailed, structured conversations about the texture of the conscious dreaming experience, what the practitioners have been quietly doing for centuries. Neuroscience is only now developing the tools to examine the meeting of these two traditions, one measured in millennia, the other in decades, is one of the more quietly fascinating developments in current sleep research. The question of whether lucid dreaming can be harmful deserves a calm and honest note. For most people, it is benign. The risks that exist are relatively narrow. Failed induction attempts can sometimes produce sleep paralysis, startling when unexpected, but not dangerous. Frequent attempts at wake-initiated lucid dreams can disrupt sleep continuity, and for people prone to dissociation or psychosis, conditions where the boundary between internal experience and external reality is already fragile, blurring the line between dreaming and waking may not be advisable. Lucid dreaming, like any practice that touches the edges of consciousness, warrants awareness. Not fear, just care. There is something worth pausing on in the structure of a lucid dream. The dreamer is inhabiting two positions simultaneously. They are in the dream, responsive to its imagery, emotionally present within its unfolding, and they are also watching the dream, aware that it is a dream, aware of themselves as the one who is dreaming. This double position, immersed and aware, inside and observing, is not easy to maintain. Most lucid dreamers report that excitement tends to destabilize it, pulling attention too forcefully into the dream until awareness slips away. Stability in the lucid state requires, paradoxically, a kind of calm, the same gentle, even attention that allows you to fall into sleep in the first place. Halfway through these 100 facts, and a shape is emerging. The science of lucid dreaming is, at its heart, the science of a particular kind of attention, an attention that can hold experience without being consumed by it. Whether developed through meditation, through deliberate practice, or simply encountered naturally in a quiet morning dream, this quality of mind appears to be trainable, available, closer to most people than they might imagine. And the dream, it turns out, may be one of the most intimate spaces where that training can take place. The most consistent finding across 50 years of lucid dreaming research is perhaps the simplest. People who keep a dream journal, who write down what they remember upon waking, day after day, dream more. They remember more. Their dreams become more detailed, more narrative, more emotionally coherent, and over time, their frequency of lucid dreaming increases. The act of paying attention to what happens during sleep, it seems, tells the sleeping mind that the experience is worth having. Attention, even retrospective attention, shapes what the mind produces in the dark. We are reaching the halfway point of our journey tonight. Rest here, gently, and pause here. Think about the memory you have of a dream from years ago. Still vivid, still colored, still held. Every time you remember it, your brain rewrites it slightly. It is always a living thing, always shifting toward what carries the most meaning. Right now, your brain is doing this work in the background, deciding what matters, softening what doesn't need to stay sharp. You don't need to help it. You've already offered today everything it needed. This moment, this slow breathing, this settling, is itself part of what the brain is writing into the record. You are in the middle of something long, and tonight is exactly where this middle is supposed to be. And we continue drifting. There is a region of the brain that lights up, reliably. In studies of conscious awareness across many conditions, the anterior prefrontal cortex, it activates when you catch yourself mid-thought, when you notice you have been distracted, when you recognize, from the outside, what your own mind has been doing. It is the observer within, and it is the region most consistently associated with the emergence of lucidity during dreaming. The dreaming brain, when it becomes lucid, seems to do exactly what the waking brain does when it wakes to itself. It turns its own attention back toward its own activity. It sees itself seeing. This self-seeing quality, consciousness reflecting on its own contents, is what philosophers call higher-order consciousness. Ordinary dreaming involves something more primary sensory images, emotional responses, narrative experience. But lucid dreaming adds a layer. The sleeper is not only having the experience, they are aware of having it. They are not only in the dream, they know they are in the dream. This addition of a knowing layer on top of direct experience is the same cognitive architecture that underlies much of what makes human consciousness distinctive. The lucid dream, in this way, offers a small, vivid window into what it means for a mind to be aware of itself. Consciousness researchers have long struggled with what is called the hard problem. Why does physical brain activity give rise to subjective experience at all? Why is there something it is like to see blue, to feel warm, to hear music? Lucid dreaming does not solve the hard problem. Nothing does. Yet, but it adds a useful angle. In the lucid dream, the brain is demonstrably in a different state than ordinary REM sleep, and the felt quality of the experience changes dramatically from immersed and unreflective to aware and observing. What the brain does differently in those moments, and why those differences produce a different quality of experience, is one of the more open questions in the science of mind. For most people, the experience of a lucid dream arrives uninvited. Something in the dream becomes just sufficiently strange. A face that shouldn't be here. A room that opens onto the wrong place. And the dreaming mind notices. The noticing grows. And then, quietly, knowing arrives. This natural pathway to lucidity, called dream-initiated lucid dreaming, or DILD, is the most common form. It does not require any technique. It requires only a moment of genuine noticing, a small act of attention that the sleeping mind, on a good night, performs entirely on its own. There is also something called a false awakening, an experience that many lucid dreamers know well. You believe you have woken up. You feel the bed beneath you, the air of the room, the ordinary quality of morning. You may begin your morning routine stand, walk to the bathroom, look in the mirror, and then something, some small incongruity, reveals that you have not woken at all. You are still dreaming. This experience, the dream constructing a perfect replica of ordinary waking, reveals something worth noticing about the dreaming brain's capacity. It can build not just strange worlds, but precise, intimate, utterly convincing ones. It can build the world you are most familiar with and make it feel entirely real. The phenomenology of lucid dreaming, what it is actually like from the inside, has been studied through careful interviews with practiced lucid dreamers. One consistent description: the quality of the visual world within a lucid dream. Colors are often reported as more deeply saturated than ordinary vision, more fully themselves. The texture of surfaces, bark, fabric, stone, is often described as unusually detailed. The dreaming brain, when aware, seems to render the world with particular precision, as if the act of knowing it is a dream causes the mind to look more carefully, and in looking more carefully, to see more. Sounds in lucid dreams are similarly reported as unusually clear. Music heard during a lucid dream is often described as more beautiful than music heard while awake. Richer in detail, more emotionally resonant. This is, perhaps, the dreaming brain at its most generous with its own creations, without the limits of actual sensory input, free to generate the sonic world exactly as it wishes. The mind offers the sleeper something that waking acoustics cannot. The song that exists only in the sleeping mind may be the most perfectly heard song there is. Touch in lucid dreams raises interesting questions for researchers. During REM sleep, the body is largely still, the voluntary muscles in a state of atonia, protecting the sleeper from acting out the movements of the dream. And yet lucid dreamers report feeling texture, temperature, and pressure within dreams that seem fully sensory. The brain, in the absence of external tactile input, generates its own. The felt world of the dream is not a pale copy of the physical world. It is, in the moment of experiencing it, the world entire, a reminder that sensation, at its root, is a construction of the mind. One of the more curious lines of current research involves what happens to the dreaming brain when a lucid dreamer decides to move within the dream. Studies using EEG have found that imagined movements during lucid dreams activate brain regions that overlap with those active during real or imagined movements while awake. The motor cortex is involved. Planning regions are involved. The dreaming body moves in the dream, and the dreaming brain reflects this movement with genuine neural activity. The movement is not real, and yet it is real in the brain. Two definitions of reality, sharing the same tissue. Tibetan dream yoga involves not merely achieving lucidity during sleep, but sustaining and deepening it, using the dream state as a space for contemplative practice, for examining the nature of mind, for developing a flexible and compassionate relationship to experience itself. In the tradition, The contents of dreams are treated as opportunities, challenging figures to be engaged with rather than fled from. Beautiful scenes to be appreciated without grasping. Strange events to be held lightly without the need to resolve them. This attitude, open, attentive, unafraid, is, in many ways, the attitude that sleep itself invites. Not fight, not flight, simply a soft and present witnessing. The link between lucid dreaming and creativity has been explored. Though the evidence remains relatively young, self-report studies suggest that many writers, artists, musicians, and problem solvers draw on the unusual freedom of lucid dream experiences, the ability to construct and manipulate a world without the usual constraints of physical possibility. Some report solving creative problems during lucid dreams. Others describe accessing images or narratives that they could not have reached through ordinary waking imagination. The dream as studio. The sleeping brain as collaborator. These reports are subjective, but they are consistent, and they point towards something worth taking seriously. One of the clearest things the research establishes is this: the best predictor of lucid dreaming frequency is dream recall. People who remember their dreams regularly, who make the small effort, upon waking, to lie still for a moment and let the imagery clarify before moving, have lucid dreams more often. This is true whether or not they practice any induction technique. Something about attending to dreams, even retrospectively, changes the relationship between the waking mind and the dreaming mind. Attention travels both directions across the boundary of sleep. What you pay attention to in the morning shapes what you notice in the night. The practice of keeping a dream journal, writing dreams down each morning, in whatever detail is available, is among the most consistent recommendations across lucid dreaming research. It develops dream recall. It trains the habit of noticing dream signs, the recurring images and themes that appear most often in an individual's dreams. Over time, the dreamer learns the specific geography of their own inner world, the houses that appear most often, the themes that return, the strange recurrences that are uniquely theirs. This self-knowledge, accumulated over weeks and months, becomes a kind of map, a map of a country that exists only in sleep, but is no less real for that. Research has begun to examine the relationship between lucid dreaming and general well-being. Studies find that people who experience lucid dreams report higher levels of positive affect, greater sense of personal agency, and lower levels of anxiety and depression when compared with those who do not. Causality is difficult to establish. It is not clear whether lucid dreaming produces these qualities or whether people with these qualities are simply more prone to lucid dreaming. But the association is consistent enough to suggest that something about the experience, the sense of presence, the exercise of awareness, the pleasure of the dream itself, contributes to a quality of life that extends into the waking day. We are at the point in this journey where something larger comes into view. The science of lucid dreaming is not only the science of a rare and unusual state, it is the science of what consciousness is when it turns toward itself, of what the mind does when it gains the gentle distance to observe its own experience, of what becomes possible in dreams, in waking, in healing, when awareness is present rather than absent. This is the answer beginning to emerge. Lucid dreaming matters not only for what happens inside the dream, but for what it reveals about the mind that is capable of dreaming it. The most recent comprehensive review of the clinical applications of lucid dreaming, published in early 2025, examined the evidence for its therapeutic potential across conditions, including nightmare disorder, depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress. The review noted the connections between lucid dreaming and contemplative practices such as dream yoga and yoga nidra, an ancient Indian practice of cultivating awareness at the threshold of sleep. It placed lucid dreaming within a broader landscape of practices aimed at increasing conscious access to the states of mind that occur during sleep. The review was cautious, as good science is, but its direction was clear. This is a field of genuine clinical interest. About 80% of people who meet the criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder experience recurrent nightmares. These are not simply unpleasant dreams. They are reenactments, the traumatic memory returning, night after night, in emotionally saturating detail. Sleep, which should be restorative, becomes a space of re-injury. The cycle is particularly difficult. The nightmare disrupts the very sleep that is supposed to help regulate the emotions associated with the memory. The intervention of lucid dreaming, researchers suggest, may offer a way to enter this cycle differently, not to escape the nightmare, but to meet it from the inside, awake. A randomized controlled study published in early 2025 tested a structured lucid dreaming program, 22 hours of instruction over 6 days, in adults with chronic post-traumatic stress symptoms. The workshop taught both lucid dreaming induction techniques and methods for engaging with traumatic dream content from a position of conscious agency. Participants developed what researchers called a healing plan, a pre-formed intention for how to respond if a nightmare arose while they were lucid. Results showed significant reductions in nightmare distress and post-traumatic stress symptoms in the workshop group compared to the control group. These reductions were sustained at the 1-month follow-up. Interestingly, the 2025 study found that the presence of lucid dreams themselves did not directly correlate with the reduction in symptoms. The act of having a lucid dream was not the sole mechanism of improvement. The broader program, the mindfulness practice, the intentional engagement with dream content, the sense of agency and preparation, appeared to contribute independently to the outcome. This finding matters. It suggests that the benefit of lucid dreaming therapy may extend beyond the moments of lucidity themselves, into the intention, the preparation, the relationship between the waking mind and what happens at night. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine formally recognized lucid dreaming therapy as a treatment option for nightmare disorder in 2018. This recognition places it within the framework of evidence-based care, alongside imagery rehearsal therapy, which involves modifying the narrative of recurring nightmares while awake, and elements of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. These approaches share a common thread. They invite the person experiencing nightmares to take a more active, intentional relationship to their dream content, rather than remaining a passive recipient of what sleep produces. Agency, even in the darkest corners of the sleeping mind, matters. Research has also found connections between lucid dreaming and the processing of grief. People who have lost loved ones sometimes report spontaneous lucid dreams in which they are able to encounter the person who has died, to speak with them, to sit with them, to experience their presence once more. These dreams are not typically induced through technique. They arrive on their own, carrying a quality of presence that the dreamer often describes as very different from ordinary grief dreams. Whether such experiences involve anything beyond the mind's own capacity to reconstruct and to hold, that is a question that science leaves open, but that they are healing. Many who experience them attest, and healing, of whatever origin, is not a small thing. Lucid dreaming may add a layer of intentionality to what sleep is already doing. In the aware dream, the sleeper can engage with what needs engaging. They can bring a gentle light to what the sleeping mind is processing in the dark. Rather than being carried through an emotional encounter, the lucid dreamer can choose to remain present within it, to stay with what is difficult rather than be swept past it. The aware dream does not replace the automatic work of consolidation. It simply offers the dreamer a way to participate, gently, in a process that is already quietly underway. The neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which plays a central role in REM sleep and appears to support the conditions for lucid dreaming, is also involved in attention and memory formation. Its presence during the periods of REM sleep most conducive to lucid dreaming may be part of why these dreams are so richly detailed and so well remembered. The chemistry that supports awareness during dreams may also support the encoding of those dreams into lasting memory. The lucid dream is not easily forgotten. It tends to stay. Long after ordinary dreams have dissolved, the memory of awareness inside a dream persists, clear, detailed, and strangely resonant. Children's greater tendency toward lucid dreams, noted in the research, has led some researchers to speculate about the role of lucid dreaming in early psychological development. The child's mind, still forming its sense of the boundary between self and world, may be more naturally fluid across the waking-sleeping divide. What adults must practice, children may do automatically, because the rigid categories, this is real, this is dream, are not yet fully in place. There is something worth reflecting on here, that the quality of awareness most associated with lucid dreaming may not be something that must be built from scratch, but something that was once natural and can, with care, be remembered. We have been traveling through the science of lucid dreaming for some time now, and the shape that has emerged is this: awareness inside sleep is not a trick of the brain. It is a genuine state, with its own neural signature, its own phenomenology, its own implications for understanding what consciousness is and how the mind heals. It is accessible, not easily, and not every night, but genuinely accessible to most people who choose to pay attention to the dreaming mind. The question it leaves is the one it began with: still open, still quietly waiting. If the mind can be awake inside sleep, what does that say about the nature of awareness itself? You might be feeling quite sleepy now. That is perfectly right. Think about the natural cycle of sleep and waking. Each night, a return. Each morning, a return. Neither is permanent. Neither is the whole story. Your dreaming mind has been working since long before you thought about dreaming. It knows its own timing. Tonight, it will do what it always does, whatever it needs to do. You don't need to direct it. You don't need to remember anything. The awareness that exists inside your dreams does not need your help to find its way. Simply let everything proceed in its perfect order. We are almost there now. Every night, without exception, the sleeping brain generates a world that is as detailed and as felt as any world you have walked through while awake. It populates that world with characters, with light and shadow, with texture and sound and emotion. And then, almost always, it forgets. The dreaming mind creates and forgets, creates and forgets, in cycles of about 90 minutes, all through the night. This quiet creativity, vast, continuous, largely invisible, is one of the most extraordinary facts about the human mind. The forgetting is not a failure. It serves a purpose. The consolidation process that sleep accomplishes partly depends on the dissolution of dream narrative, on the events of the dream becoming feelings and patterns rather than specific stories. The specific is absorbed into the general. The image becomes an understanding. The dream that cannot quite be remembered in the morning may have already done its work. There is a quality that experienced lucid dreamers describe, which appears again and again across cultures and traditions. It is the experience of the dream becoming more richly detailed, more real feeling, more fully itself in the moment of becoming lucid, as if awareness causes the dreaming mind to invest more fully in its own creation. The world clarifies when seen clearly. This is perhaps not only true of dreams. The word for the space between sleeping and waking, the liminal state, the threshold moment, is the same word used in many traditions for the space between one kind of understanding and another. A threshold is not a place to stay. It is a place to pass through. The lucid dream occupies this threshold. It is neither fully asleep nor fully awake, neither entirely unconscious nor fully conscious. It is the mind in transit, between one world and another, and in that transit, something becomes briefly visible that the settled states on either side tend to obscure. Sleep paralysis, often experienced as frightening, has been reframed by many who have studied lucid dreaming. The frozen body, the alert mind, the pressure of stillness, all of these are simply the atonia of REM sleep, meeting a mind that has become aware before the transition has fully completed. In this light, sleep paralysis is not an intruder. It is a doorway, the body at rest, the mind awakening, the dream still available, just behind the closed door of the eyes. The knowledge of what it is softens it. Fear, in many contexts, is simply the absence of information. The practice of waking briefly in the early morning hours, the strategy at the heart of wake back to bed, produces something worth noticing beyond its effect on lucid dreaming. That brief period of quiet wakefulness in the pre-dawn hours, when the house is still and the world outside is dark and unhurried, has a quality that many who experience it describe as unusually peaceful. A small window of pure quiet, the rest of the night still present, the day not yet begun. Something in that interval feels, perhaps objectively, like a gift, and from it, a dream, Acetylcholine's role in REM sleep connects the biology of lucid dreaming to the broader biology of attention. Systems that support focused, flexible attention during waking also appear to support the kind of awareness that allows for lucidity during sleep. This suggests that caring for attentional health through rest, through practices that cultivate present moment awareness, through the simple act of noticing what is happening, may have benefits that extend beyond the waking day, all the way into the night. The quality of the mind during sleep is not entirely separate from the quality of the mind while awake. The dreaming mind does not only replay the past, it also, research suggests, simulates the future. During REM sleep, the brain rehearses responses to challenges, generates novel combinations of ideas, and runs scenarios that have not yet happened. This prospective function of dreaming, the mind quietly preparing for what comes next, adds another dimension to the value of sleep. The dream is not only a record, it is also a rehearsal, and the lucid dream, in which the dreamer can engage deliberately with this rehearsal, may allow for a more intentional participation in that preparation. Cultures throughout history have held the dream as a source of insight, guidance, and creative revelation. The Greek tradition of dream incubation, sleeping in a sacred space with the intention of receiving a healing or prophetic dream, parallels the structured intention setting of modern lucid dreaming induction. The content differs across traditions, but the structure is remarkably consistent. Set an intention before sleep, enter the dream with that intention held gently, and receive what arrives. Whatever the ultimate nature of what is received, whether it emerges from the personal unconscious, from neurological noise, or from something else entirely, the practice of approaching sleep with deliberate attention has been considered valuable across an extraordinary range of human experience. One of the compelling findings in recent lucid dreaming research is the connection to mindful acceptance of difficult experience. People who practice mindful acceptance, holding difficult emotions and experiences without pushing them away or clinging to them, report lower nightmare distress and fewer disturbing dreams. The capacity to be with experience rather than against it, it seems, extends even into sleep. The nightmares of those who practice acceptance are fewer and less distressing. Equanimity, built during waking hours, travels into the dream. There is a word in Japanese, yum, that means both dream and hope. In many languages, the word for dream carries this, doubling the thing that happens in sleep and the thing the waking mind reaches toward. This linguistic convergence may not be accidental. Dreams are where desire takes form without constraint, where the things that cannot yet be, become. The lucid dream makes this creative freedom conscious. The dreamer who knows they are dreaming is the dreamer who knows they are free. For as long as the dream lasts, the earliest systematic scientific study of dreaming, conducted by researchers in the middle of the 20th century, attaching electrodes to sleeping subjects and discovering the regularity of REM sleep, opened a new chapter in the science of mind. Before that work, dreaming was considered essentially inaccessible, too private, too fleeting, too strange. The discovery that the brain has a regular architecture of sleep, predictable cycles, measurable stages, opened the door to decades of research, and lucid dreaming opened a door further still the dreaming mind could speak. It could signal, and researchers, on the other side, could listen. What the researchers found, cumulatively, is this: the sleeping mind is not absent. It is present in a different mode. It is processing, organizing, creating, preparing, healing. It is not waiting for you to return. It is already working, and in the best of circumstances, in the lucid dream, in the well-slept night, in the morning, when a dream surfaces gently and you hold it for a moment before it dissolves, it offers something back, a fragment of its work, a small piece of what it has been doing in the dark. The capacity for lucid dreaming, research consistently suggests, is not restricted to a small, naturally gifted group. It is broadly available. Most people, with gentle and sustained practice, can increase its frequency. This fact is worth sitting with. The experience of being present inside a dream, of knowing, in the midst of imagination, that you are the one who is imagining, is not locked away. It is available, closer than it seems, accessible through the same attention that this moment, right now, requires. The answer to the question at the heart of this journey has been emerging slowly. The science of lucid dreaming reveals that consciousness is not a binary state, either on or off, awake or asleep. It is a quality that admits of degrees, that can be present in the midst of sleep, that can rise and fall within a single night, that the border between awareness and its absence is softer, more permeable, more interesting than the simple language of waking and sleeping suggests. The brain that closes its eyes each night does not simply stop, it dreams. And sometimes, in the midst of dreaming, it opens something like an inner eye, a capacity for recognition, a capacity for knowing that the world it is inhabiting is a world of its own making. This self-recognition, subtle, quiet, brief, is a form of consciousness recognizing itself, the mind catching the mind in the act of being a mind. Those who practice lucid dreaming regularly often report a shift in their relationship to waking experience as well. A gentle habit of noticing, of pausing, mid-scene, to ask, am I fully here? Am I aware of what is happening around me and within me? The reality check that was trained as a dream induction technique begins, over time, to become a waking habit. The question that was asked in dreams is asked in the morning light. Am I present? Am I conscious of this moment? Sleep is, among all its other functions, a restoration. The body heals. The brain clears its chemical debris. The emotional weight of the day is sorted and softened. You give the mind its hours of darkness, and it gives you, in return, the capacity to face the light. The dream is part of that return. Not the whole of it, but part. A place where something is worked through, where something, quietly and without your direction, is made a little better. Tonight, as you listen, something is already happening. Your brain is beginning its slow approach toward the first stage of sleep. Thoughts are loosening their grip. The hard edges of the day are softening. And somewhere in the hours ahead, whether you remember it or not, a dream will form. A world will rise up from within you, detailed and felt and entirely its own. And the mind that is right now listening to these words will travel in its own way through that world. This is what happens every night. And it is, in its own way, extraordinary. The lucid dream is, ultimately, a kind of gift that the mind can give to itself, a moment of recognition in the midst of creation, a pause in the dream narrative long enough for the dreamer to say, "I see you. I know what you are. I am here, and I am aware." And then, most often, the dream continues. The world that the sleeping mind has made is still there, still inviting, still full of whatever it contains. Only now it is inhabited by someone who knows they are there, and that knowing changes everything and nothing at once. There is a quality that the most experienced lucid dreamers describe as the deepest form of the practice. Not the excitement of flying, not the strangeness of constructed worlds, but the simple, quiet experience of being in a dream and being still, of knowing that everything around you is made of mind, and being at peace with that, of sitting in the generated world and letting it be what it is, without the need to control or change it. A kind of lucid surrender, awareness without agenda, presence without grasping, the dream receiving its dreamer fully, and the dreamer letting the dream be. The science of lucid dreaming is still young. The tools to study it are being refined. The largest EEG dataset ever assembled for this purpose was only published in 2025. The clinical applications are only beginning to be tested with rigor. The connections to contemplative traditions are only beginning to be explored with the instruments of neuroscience. What we know is genuinely worth holding, and also genuinely incomplete. The map is partial. The territory remains vast. What this science leaves us with, tonight, is something quiet and true. The sleeping mind is not empty. The dreaming mind is not absent. And the aware dreaming mind, the lucid dreamer who stands inside the dream knowing it is a dream, is a demonstration of something that language struggles to fully express. That consciousness is more various, more flexible, more present in more states than we often suppose. That the border between waking and dreaming is drawn in softer lines than it appears. And that the mind, even in sleep, is always, in some sense, home. Tonight you will sleep, and in the hours ahead, something will stir in the architecture of your rest. Perhaps a dream, perhaps a fragment, perhaps a brief sensation of falling gently through warmth. And whether or not you remember any of it, the night will have done its work. The brain that is already slowing its rhythms as you listen will take what is needed and give back what it can. And in the morning, if you pause before moving, if you lie still for just a moment and let the residue of the night come forward, you may find something there. A color, a feeling, a fragment of a place, and you will know the mind was present, even in sleep, especially in sleep. The most wonderful thing about the science of lucid dreaming is what it implies about ordinary sleep. Every night, the mind enters a state it does not remember. It dreams, processes, creates, and restores. It does all of this without your witness. And sometimes, rarely, or perhaps with practice, more often, it turns its quiet awareness back toward itself. It notices. It knows. And in that knowing, something opens. Not a door to another world, a door to the same world, seen more clearly. The aware dream is, in the end, simply this: the mind, knowing itself, and finding, in that knowing, something worth waking for. And so, our quiet journey through the science of lucid dreaming comes gently to a close. We began with the simplest of questions. What happens when the sleeping mind wakes to itself? And traveled through decades of research, through the first eye movement signals sent from inside a dream to a laboratory, through the frontopolar cortex rising quietly in the dark, through the experience of 55 in 100 people who have known, at least once, the particular clarity of recognizing I am dreaming. We found that awareness inside sleep is not a trick or a rarity. It is a genuine state with its own brain signature, its own emotional quality, its own potential for healing. We found that the mind capable of noticing it is dreaming is the same mind that is capable of noticing anything, and that this noticing, practiced gently over time, makes a difference in both the night and the day. And we end, as perhaps all good journeys through the dreaming mind should end, not with answers held too tightly, but with the question still open, still soft, still curious. The science of lucid dreaming reminds us that the border between sleeping and waking is drawn in softer lines than we imagine. Much of what we consider most distinctively conscious, self-awareness, reflective thought, the capacity to observe experience from the inside, does not stop at the threshold of sleep. It continues there, in altered form, available to those who learn to notice it. The mind, it seems, does not fully leave when the eyes close. Some part of it remains. Some light stays on. In these final minutes, take the deepest breath you can. Think about consciousness itself, not yours alone. Everyone who has ever asked, in the middle of a dream, wait, is this real? Everyone who has ever paused in the small hours and felt, just for a moment, both asleep and awake at once. Every mind that has ever turned to look at itself and found, looking back, something it recognized. You are not alone in this. The capacity you carry to be aware of your own experience, to notice what the mind is doing, to be present even in the midst of the most private world, is older than science and more common than most people know. Let your entire being dissolve into the space between waking and sleeping, where thought softens into image, where image dissolves into warmth, where warmth becomes simply rest. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left, only peace. If this gentle exploration of the dreaming mind brought you some stillness tonight, if it made the edges of the day a little softer, a quiet like, subscribe, or a thought shared in the comments helps another searching mind find its way here. It only takes a moment. One sleepy soul guided gently home. Thank you, truly, for being here tonight. Whatever you have been turning over today, the thoughts that arrived quietly at the edge of sleep, the concerns that came with the dark. You don't need to carry them any further. They will still be there in the morning. Tonight, you belong only to yourself. You've traveled inward tonight. Through corridors most people never pause to notice. You touched the architecture of the dreaming mind and found it gentler, more capable, more quietly present than it often appears. You can allow these thoughts of lucid dreaming to fade now, like the last image of a dream at dawn. Present, then softer, then simply part of everything, leaving only the quiet, unheld calm behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, as if all you've carried today is being sorted by careful, invisible hands, and is simply setting itself down. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way consolidation does, not with force, but with quiet intention, into a realm where time and weight no longer matter. If your eyes are still open, the next video is waiting for you, ready to continue the journey. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the darkness that feels safe and warm. Tomorrow, your dreaming mind will still be there, still tending, still watching, still capable of turning its quiet attention back toward itself, still becoming. But tonight belongs to stillness. Rest well, gentle explorer, and remember, the mind that can know it is dreaming is a mind already, in some soft way. Awake. Good night.